Iceland, UK should have been tougher on bankers after financial crisis. Some of Iceland's bankers were jailed after the financial crisis, and the country's PM says more should have been done in the UK. People demonstrate against the government on November 29, 2008 in Reykjavik, during a weekly protest over the global financial crisis which saw Icelandic banks suffer heavy losses. By Adam Parsons, business correspondent. The UK should have taken stronger action against bankers involved in the financial crisis, according to the Prime Minister of Iceland, the only country that reacted to the crisis by sending people to prison.
Well, of course, the British government aren't going to send the bankers to prison because the British government is bought and paid for by the bankers.
In an exclusive interview, Jari Bidikso told Sky News that his own country's actions had helped to heal the effects of the crisis. But he said he was surprised other countries, including the UK, had not followed Iceland's example.
Again, they won't follow Iceland's example because our government is owned by the banks.
I think there's frustration, from the outside world, that things were not at least investigated.
And if they had been investigated, it would have turned out that the banks all collaborated to cause the financial crash, but hey ho, you know, who's going to investigate it? Who can you trust in the UK? No one. You can't trust the police, you can't trust the courts, you can't trust the government, you can't trust the councils, you can't trust any of them. So who, to be fair, if there had been a legitimate investigation, there would be bankers, or should be bankers, should I say, in jail right now.
I'm not saying there was reason to prosecute all of those involved, but I feel that too little was done to investigate possible criminal acts elsewhere.
Well, if they had have investigated criminal acts elsewhere, there would have been a lot more people inside. This is why in the UK we had no investigation whatsoever, because thankfully the majority now are starting to see that this is all a scam, the money system's a scam, and the bankers crash the economy deliberately because they make billions off it and they don't give two shoots about any of us.
I'm surprised at how much of taxpayers' money was used to save private investments, which had taken place by giving credit to banks that were run very badly, and I'm also surprised by the fact that little was done in so many countries towards investigating and potentially prosecuting those that went against the law.
Is anyone here surprised? There you go. They even admit the banks were run badly. In fact, they weren't run badly, they were run criminally, but, you know, again, it comes back to the fact that the banks have bought and paid for many times over the government, and and along with their Freemason friends, they've infiltrated everything from the police, the courts, you name it. They've infiltrated the lot. That's why you can't get justice anymore.
In Iceland, around 200 people have been investigated, with several dozen found guilty of criminal offences.
So Iceland at least had the bollocks to go after them and prosecute them. They didn't get them all, but hey ho, you know, they'll just come up with some scammers why they've done nothing wrong in the end.
However, some are now pursuing appeals to the European Court of Human Rights, saying their convictions are unsafe.
Unsafe? They want bleeding executing.
They believe they were used as scapegoats by the government prosecuted in order to assuage public anger over the economic crisis.
Maybe partially true, but at the end of the day, there were still crooks and criminals just like the ones in our country, except the ones in our country are still living in big mansions and getting 5, 6, 7 ridiculous amounts of money.
Sigurður Einarsson had been chairman of Kaupthing, Iceland's biggest bank at the time of the economic crisis. He was sentenced to 5 years. He rarely speaks in public. This was his first interview for several years, and he remains convinced that he did nothing wrong.
He got 5 years. Many died, lost their lives over the criminal acts of these scum.
Unfortunately, I have lost faith in the Icelandic judicial system.
I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. If I keep saying that, I might even believe it. I did nothing wrong, lying scum.
I have lost faith in courts, he said. I've been sentenced twice now without a shred of evidence.
Welcome to our world.
The sentiment in this country was that the bankers were to blame. People needed somebody to blame for that. Basically, the prosecutor got the word from the politicians: go after the private bankers. They changed the law retrospectively. The system was corrupted.
Well, there you go. We've got more in common with Iceland than we thought we had.
There are others who agree. Former Supreme Court Judge John Styagulagso told Sky News that the bankers didn't get a fair treatment, but most polls still show overwhelming support for the move to take harsh legal action against countries' financiers.
Well, of course a Freemason judge is going to agree that they didn't get justice because, it was one of his buddies. Oh, shame. When it's against them, the system is corrupted. But when it's for them, it's working just fine. Unfortunately, in the UK, it's working for them just fine.
A woman holds a cardboard as she takes part in a demonstration in central Reykjavik, Iceland, on November 8, 2008, calling on the government to resign and for banks to be more open about the country and its financial crisis. A woman heading for a protest in 2008, showing the feeling towards bankers. The man who led that action was Special Prosecutor Ólafur Hauksson. During his time in office, he has held meetings with national prosecutors in other nations, including the UK. He shares the surprise that Britain has not taken similar action, and suspects the political will was not there to take on such a battle.
Well, yeah, I think we can all agree with that the government should resign and then be prosecuted. And the bankers rightly got locked up, but more of them should have got locked up. Every single one that had their finger in any of these pots should have been locked up. But, we could always do the same over here. Oh, wait, no, we can't because we've got no backbone over here.
I thought the UK would do something more, but for the institutions in the UK, they had to be given some more resources to do so, said Mr. Hauksson. Maybe this was more in the hands of the politicians, or the ones ruling the state budget.
There was no will there to take on such a battle because they're part of it. They're all in it together. They're a corrupt bunch of government protecting corrupt banks. But hey, what are you going to do?
So that comes actually first, to put this task together, to finance it and to have the patience to have its work go through. Iceland's Special Prosecutor Ólafur Hauksson led the prosecution of bankers after the financial crisis.
Well, he's got that right, hasn't it? Whoever controls the money controls the planet. So it would seem at any rate.
It is a 3-hour drive from the capital city, where all the bankers were based, to a barren, windswept corner of the country's western region. But this is where you find the place where they served their sentences, a collection of farm buildings that were turned into a prison some decades ago.
And I bet these prisons are like a holiday camp complex. You know that they're going to have the best of everything. It's going to be like a home from home for them.
It's called Kviabrigja, a desolate, remote jail that ended up holding some of the best-known businessmen in the country. Some, including Mr. Iaso, are now appealing their convictions to the European Court of Human Rights.
Well, that's it then. If they're appealing to the European Courts of Human Rights, it'll be turned over because, as we all know, we can sincerely trust the EU because they'd never lie or steal from us at any point ever, would they?
They maintain they broke no laws, and maintain the legal system was warped against them. But there is still limited sympathy for their plight.
Whether they broke laws or not, men and women and children suffered and died because of these criminals.
Prime Minister of Iceland Bjarni Benediktsson says there could still be another financial crisis.
There you go. These guys know what's coming.
Imprisoning bankers has certainly been popular, but it's hard to know if it has changed attitudes or made the banks any more robust. Even the Prime Minister admits that risk still exists.
There you go, another one in the know telling you what's coming.
There will be another banking crisis in the future, said Mr. Benediktsson.
Hey everyone, guess where we are now? We're in the future.
When, I can't say. Humans make mistakes, and greed will lead people to bad decisions. That will happen again.
Like I said, those in the know are telling you what's coming. Remember their rule. They've got to tell you, but not straight to your face. They can tell you in movies, films, or in articles like this one.